Not too long ago, I wrote an article, and it was about Pong, and it was entitled "Sitting on a Chair with Pong." So it encompassed several ideas, and I didn't go into a lot of detail. And basically, what I was saying is that if you've been properly instructed in how to form a posture and how to move within that posture, with practice, you should be able to release your entire body as if you're actually sitting on something. So here, the majority of my weight is on the rear. My hip is very well bent, so the weight is actually inside my hip joint. And I'm able to align, release, and not have to hold myself, which is totally against Tai Chi principles. I'm able to just sit and release my breath, release all my muscular tension, and sit. So in adjusting from the rear to the front, I just continue to sit. My front hip needs to open to accept my weight. Once my weight is there, again I sit, this time on both sides. And if I touch my inguinal crease, or what in Chinese, in Tai Chi terms, we call Kua, K-U-A, this area right here. As long as that is soft, I'm probably sitting pretty good. So there's another portion to this, of course, and that's when we sit, that we are not dead. We need to be alive and have Hung energy coming out of our body. Hung is actually an active energy, so saying sitting motionless on a chair is not quite right, but again, I didn't go into a lot of detail. Even sitting, apparently stationary, I'm not stationary. I'm making all kinds of very small, minor adjustments. Coming forward, a huge series of adjustments is required to get into the proper position with an arch through the groin, my legs properly placed, and both sides of the quad open and soft. So now the question arises, how do I get Pong into my arms? So that's one of the first breakthroughs that a Tai Chi student can have, is when I'm doing push, how can I have a strong effect on my partner or an opponent without tightening? Most people can't see their way clear to the ability that's built into Tai Chi to exhibit great strength, but through release. And I'm going to repeat that. Everything we do in Tai Chi is release, and the better you can become at this, the stronger your Pong energy is going to be, the more you'll be able to affect an opponent more if you can release more. That's what the whole art is built on. And one of the signs of debasement of our art is that most teachers revert immediately to breaking the body using the arms only and tightening, which is a sign that their skill is very low level. And certainly this is not good for health. Because Tai Chi is partly based on Qigong and meridian theory, we have to realize that all of our meridians run through the body and connect down into the feet. So if you want your meridians open and your Qi circulating, it's not only alignment and urging the Qi to move, but it's joining the body together so that the lines that we're forming are always going all the way through the body and not broken, not leaving the bottom half of the body out, or leaving most of my upper body out for that matter, and just using arms. All our movement has to come from the hips and feet, or your Pong is not going to exist and your Qi circulation is going to be way, way down. So standing in a stationary posture, doing a ward off to the left, this area needs to be well open, coming all the way down my back and into my hip. My chest, from a normal, what we mostly call normal position, the chest needs to release inwards. This happens anytime your arm goes up, your chest should go backwards and downwards. So depending on how high you lift your arm, you should have a continuous backward, downward motion on the chest. And the reason for that is that we want to release the shoulder joint. The shoulder is the root of the arm, but it has to connect to the rest of your body. So if you're doing something goofy, as you'll see a very popular group doing like that, that's just absolutely the opposite of anything that's true and good in Tai Chi. So when my arm is up in this position, this line is very open, rounded outwards. This line is very open but rounded inwards with my chest receding. Now, for where my arm is going to rest, because everything needs to resolve to our feet, my armpit sits on my hip. So if your hip is not bent, or if it's malformed, then your shoulder is not going to have anywhere to sit. The root of your arm itself can't root. So your pung, again, is gone. So from the armpit sitting on the hip, my hip needs to sit onto my foot so that we have a straight line of support coming all the way down. Now for the rest of the arm, my upper arm is going to sit on my thigh, my elbow aligns with my knee, and the upper arm has to have outward, upward energy on it, as if it's being slightly pulled upwards. So if you can manage to get your arm into that position, this is ward off, but with a very slight adjustment, it becomes push and press and single whip and many, many other postures. So this basic connection is almost entirely the same. Now this has had an effect down here. It's changed how my connection works a little bit, but the idea remains the same. This is rounded out, this is rounded in, and my arm is up and very rooted, sitting on this side. So now this arm, how do I root this arm? Well, one of the things that's very, very common is that people either lock their elbow or raise their elbow, and either tension or misalignment, again, means that you can't root that part of your body through your body and down into the ground. So this is always going to be wrong, and this is always going to be wrong. The elbow needs to bend, the palm should face the ground. My shoulder, again, is sunk into my hip. My upper arm is sitting on my thigh, and my hand, again, should have a slightly upward motion to it. And that gives us a good sense of pump. Now, the rest of your body obviously needs some care and some mindful correction, but basically in most cases, the chest is rounded in, the back is rounded out. This is not always true, but it's quite often true. So the next question is, if we're doing the very first posture, how does this arm come up without tightening and without disassociating itself from the rest of your body? Well, we have an answer for that, obviously, and the answer is that what happens from this position after our step forward is that the shoulder and the hip both sink. This creates a gear and a lever both, so your movement is not on the arm, it's way back on the shoulder and the hip. And eventually, with practice, you can create a lot of energy, a lot of, I'm not going to say force, because force is the wrong idea, but from this position, rather than lifting my arm, which is always going to mean that my arm is operating separately, not body as a single unit. From here, I sink my shoulder. Imagine that my hand is being pulled up and rotate very slightly. So this is a big secret. Now I've given you one big secret. How does this hand come down? Well, it's a similar process, except that we're attaching to down energy rather than up energy. And what that looks like is that as my hip is sinking, so by the way, if you typically fall, you can't do either of these. We need to be able to control our body, control our weight, control our sinking, and upward motion as well. So this hand, the shoulder and elbow attached to the sinking of my hip. So the hand moves very, very little. It's mostly the body pulling the arm down. And again, with practice, what you'll find is that you can pull someone down, make them lose their balance very, very easily without effort. Or the effort is not out here. The effort is soft release effort. So this movement, the up and the down are both caused by sinking the shoulder, sinking the hip, sinking the shoulder, elbow, and hip. And that's a good expression of hung energy. Anytime you see someone off balance, not centered, and not having their breath down in their belly, then you know right away, no matter what they look like, they're not doing good Tai Chi. And their expression of energy, force, strength, whatever you want to call it, is not going to be based on Tai Chi principles. So I hope that is helpful, taking the idea of sitting on a chair with Pong a little bit further. See you next time.